Hello and welcome to the State of the Fleet Industry, a weekly video series produced by Automotive Fleet magazine and which is sponsored by Enterprise Fleet Management. I'm Mike Antich, editor of Automotive Fleet, and today I'd like to examine what's occurring in the fleet industry for the week of January 4th, 2021. But before I start with my presentation, I'd like to wish everyone a great 2021, and I'm confident it's going to be better than 2020, or as a lyric from an old song says, it's going to get better because it can't get no worse. Without a question, 2020 was the most challenging year in the history of fleet management. And as we cross over into 2021 and we look a little further down the horizon, at least for the foreseeable future, we really don't anticipate any sort of major changes that are happening. But you do have this feeling of deja vu. And by that I mean, if you go back to March of 2020, when the pandemic first took hold and had its first serious impact on the fleet industry, at that point, the conventional wisdom was that by third quarter of 2020, the pandemic should start to dissipate, and by year end, the pandemic should be over and we could all return to our normal work environment in 2021. But as we approached the third quarter of 2020, even though we had the vaccines in sight and there was light at the end of the tunnel, that goalpost got shifted further into the future. At that point, the conventional wisdom was it's going to take until the end of the first half of 2021 in order for the vaccination to go through the population as a whole before we start returning to a normal business life. But with the slow rollout of the vaccination distribution, especially at the state level, that's now causing some people to refer to 2021 as being a transitional year. And, first I've been hearing this, but by transitional year, in my mind, that implies that it's still going to be a recovery year and that the full recovery won't be occurring until the following year, 2022. Well, I wanted to get a reality check on that, and I reached out to several hundred fleet managers, fleet suppliers, to get their take as to what they're anticipating for 2021. The response was excellent and a lot of responses, but I'd like to focus on about four key response areas here. The number one area that received the most response was more at a tactical level. It wasn't strategic. We were dealing with long-term issues, but it was dealing with the area of chassis availability and long lead times for product delivery. And a lot of that is being fueled by the tight constraints of inventory in the cargo van area. That's being fueled by the growth in last mile delivery and e-commerce. And as we exit the peak season of e-commerce, the anticipation is that last mile delivery segment should be returning to its annual 10% per year growth. Now, that still means that we're going to be encountering constraints and longer lead times with cargo vans. So that anticipation is that as last mile delivery continues to grow, we're going to continue to see those constraints. Another area that fleet managers bring up is that there are fewer sedans in the market, and this is narrowing their fleet choices as to what they could bring on into their portfolios. Everyone's in agreement there's going to be ongoing strong demand for trucks, SUVs, crossovers, and that bodes well for future resale values. But the impact is that on average your acquisition costs are trending upwards. The capitalized costs on vehicles are going up, and it's not only because of the vehicle segments that are being acquired, but also because of the technology that's being put on board these vehicles. And what I'm referring to is safety technology, in particular ADAS, your advanced driver assistance systems. That's not only increasing your fixed costs, but it's also increasing operating costs because it happens on the maintenance side. Simple fact of replacing a windshield nowadays means you got to recalibrate your ADAS system, which was an expense that didn't exist, not that long ago. Accident management. Accident management costs have gone up primarily because of the technology that's in today's vehicles, and that's going to be continuing. But at the moment, all eyes are focused on the spring new vehicle market. The anticipation is that there should be an uptick, at least that's the hope, and we're just going to have to wait and see to see how that plays out. Another area of top response from fleet managers and fleet suppliers has been in the area of sustainability and the forthcoming EV products. And this is happening at two different levels. One, it's happening at a governmental level as more and more states are starting to issue roadmaps for carbon output reductions. And in my state in particular, California, EVs represent an integral part of their plan to reduce carbon output and achieve certain objectives. And finally, we're starting to see commercial vehicle EVs being introduced. They haven't entered the marketplace in volume yet, so a lot of fleet managers are now still focused on hybrids as a short-term solution, but eventually we're going to start seeing greater diversity in EVs in different vehicle segments. The third area is safety. Safety continues to be a top concern, but it's primarily being driven by budget constraints. I mean, everybody wants and is in favor of safety, especially among senior management, but getting them to commit to making major outlays of funds for major fleet initiatives or fleet safety initiatives or implementing telematic solutions, it still continues to be an ongoing struggle. Behind the wheel training, that has really decreased because of the concerns about the contagion, but there is ongoing online safety courses that are being taken, especially as employees are working from home. Another area is in terms of resale values. If you look at today's new vehicles as tomorrow's used vehicles, the decline in new vehicle sales, in particular your rental car industries, which is that demand is totally collapsed. That's going to result in fewer vehicles in the used vehicle markets of tomorrow, which tends to put upward pressure on resale values. So that's a positive for the commercial fleet side of the business. But on the strategic side, in particular, the whole work from home phenomena, companies wholesale asked employees to work from home, and to the surprise of management, productivity really wasn't impacted. Employees liked it because it gave them the flexibility that they wanted, but that is going to be impacting how we deal with things in the future. Is that a permanent change now that's going to be taking place in the marketplace? That's going to have a direct bearing on face-to-face sales and in-person meetings in future years. And is there going to be a greater pressure on the part of sales people to focus on video conferencing as a substitution for that in-person sale? The implications on the fleet side is that really has a bearing on your fleet utilization and the number of vehicles that you have in your fleet. So that's something that's yet to play out, but from what I'm hearing from a number of companies is they're embracing the work from home, remote worker business model, and I think we're going to see that in play at a number of companies. So I'd like to conclude the State of the Industry presentation for the week of January 4th, 2021, and I'd like to thank you for listening, and I wish you again a great 2021.